You did nail it.
Twice.
Yeah.
Twice.
Very impressive.
So, and just to be clear, it was really, really hard, but the level of talent was just, outstanding. And I'll just tell you the way it works is whatever buttons the astronauts tell you to hit, those are the buttons you hit, and everything seems to work just fine. So anyway, it's been a great day today. Thank you to Elon Musk and your team for enabling all of this to happen. Know this, NASA has a lot under development right now. And there is a big difference between development and operations. We think back to Space Shuttle, that was an operational capability that existed for decades. And what we're doing now is we are developing brand new things that have never operated before, and Commercial Crew is one of those. And the Crew Dragon is an element of Commercial Crew, so is the Starliner, the SLS and the Orion space capsule, the Gateway, a human landing system that we will have under development shortly. But yesterday, as a matter of fact, I was out at the facility of Northrop Grumman looking at the James Webb Space Telescope, which again is an amazingly complex system that NASA has under development. We have right now a lot under development. But I will also tell you, and Elon and I are in strong agreement on this, that the one thing we have under development that is of the highest priority is launching American astronauts on American rockets from American soil. We have not done that since 2011, the retirement of the Space Shuttle, but we are on the cusp of making that a reality. And in order to make it a reality, we're going to need our Commercial Crew partners. And SpaceX is a big, big partner on this project. We need them to be successful. They need us to be successful. This is a great partnership, and I am confident, after today's conversation especially, that in the coming months, we're going to have hardware delivered to the Cape, to the Kennedy Space Center. And of course, between now and then, there's a lot that needs to be done. We have a static fire that is going to be happening in short order. We have a high altitude abort test that will be happening in short order. And once all that data comes back, we've got to make sure that we are adequately meeting the margins necessary to make sure that these two gentlemen right here are safe. And Elon and I are in strong agreement that whatever it takes to make sure they are safe is what we are focused on like a laser. So I want to say thank you for being here. We are open to answering any questions here, but Elon, I'll turn it over to you for a few comments, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Sounds good. Well, it's an honor to be here with the NASA with NASA administrator and with Bob and Doug, who will be the first astronauts on the Crew Dragon. This is the launch of Crew is something that we've been working towards for 17 years. Actually, most of that time with NASA. We've now done actually 19 birthings and dockings or connections with the space stations. We've gone up to the space station 19 times in partnership with NASA. I think a lot of people don't realize that we've actually been there 19 times, including one of those times with the Crew Dragon design, and then the one that will be going to the station with the astronauts will be an improved version of the one that has already gone to the space station, docked and returned. This human spaceflight is the reason that SpaceX was created, and we're incredibly honored to partner with NASA and to make this happen. This is your dream come true, really. Whoops. Yeah.
We're open to any questions.
I have a mic over here. Okay. I ask that you keep your questions focused on today's topic, Commercial Crew Dragon.
Hi guys, Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut. A couple questions for both Jim and Elon. Can you give me a rundown on why exactly both commercial crew vehicles have opted for a liquid abort system as opposed to a more traditional solid rocket system or an injectable system like that?
Sure. So I can't speak for Boeing, obviously, but the reason for having in the case of Dragon, a liquid abort system is really well. There's two reasons. We want to have the launch abort integrated with the vehicle, such that you don't have to discard the launch abort tower on every mission. So I do consider that like any significant state change after launch is a potential failure mode. So traditionally, if you had a solid rocket motor, especially if it's a tractor mounted on the nose, you would first of all be unable to, it's too heavy to carry all the way to orbit, so you would only have a partial abort capability. It doesn't take you all the way there. And then if that solid rocket motor is not ejected effectively, then you will have a crew fatality. So I think it's very important to have integrated abort system such that you have abort all the way to orbit, and no state change is required. You do not need to eject. We do not need to eject the solid rocket motor for crew safety. So I think it's a substantial increase in safety, and then because it's using the same propellant as the on-orbit maneuvering thrusters, you get dual use. Because you either need to abort or you need to do orbital maneuvering, but you don't need to do both. So I think it's a fundamentally improved design and a material improvement in crew safety.
And I would add that it is a fundamentally new design, and it's not easy. And over a year ago, when I, as the NASA administrator, when I first came here to Hawthorne as the administrator, of course I was here as a member of Congress before that, but as the NASA administrator, Elon and I sat down and we had a conversation about risk. And I asked him specifically, what is the biggest risk that we're dealing with here? And his thought was at the time that the concern was using the propulsion system for the launch abort system, which had never been done before. It's never been integrated in this way, and making that transition in pressures from a propulsion system to launch. Elon Musk said to me, he said, that's the biggest concern. That's what we need to be worried about. And I will tell you, if we look at the catastrophic failure that happened back in April, he was right. And that gives me confidence, and that is why we test. And what we learn from that is going to make us all better in the future. And I can tell you that we have confidence, based on that experience, that what we have iterated since then is going to make us all safer. And it's really, again, about Bob and Doug. And Elon, and we were just in a meeting, Elon looked at them and he said, we are not going to do anything that these two gentlemen are not comfortable with. And that puts all of us in a great position. So, to be clear, this is not easy. But to be clear, it will make us safer. And that's important.
Yeah, I think there's always like some expectation of the interaction between the orbital maneuvering system and the abort system. That's why we do the test. If you don't do tests if you think everything's going to be fine, you do tests if you think they might not be fine, and so that's why they're called tests. So you figure out what the issues are without any crew on board. You establish root cause, improve the design, and retest, and that's what we're doing. And one of the things, for example, that we've done is improve the isolation between the super Draco thrusters and the Draco thrusters, so that you cannot get propellant bleed through in the event of an abort. So, essentially, the thing you want to avoid is having a small slug of liquid with a lot of pressure behind it and a long line. So it'll essentially accelerate that small slug of liquid. It's like a bullet, and then if it has anything that is remotely combustible at the end of that line, it will even light titanium on fire, which is what it did. So putting a burst disk in there isolates the abort system from the orbital maneuvering system and prevents any valve leakage that can get a small slug of liquid in there.
So today, when we first talked today, you said the Dragon is basically a bunch of valves.
It's a lot of valves.
Now there's a few less valves, which is good because it's going to prevent these kind of errors. I wouldn't have said that earlier. If you just said it, we're okay saying it.
Having a burst disk there instead of a valve is better because the burst disk does not leak. That basically, I think, was somewhat vestigial. The reason not to there wasn't most in the first place was it's somewhat vestigial because at one point we were going to use the Super Draco thrusters to land, and so you want to pull a reusable land system that can land, then you wouldn't want to burst this because you have to replace the burst disk every flight, and you want to rather have a valve. But since we're no longer going to do propulsive landing with Dragon, it makes sense to put burst disk in there. There's a ton of other improvements that have been made as well. But they're super inside baseball. Oh, inside baseball.
Hey guys, it's Chris Davenport from the Washington Post. For Elon and Jim, Elon, you were talking about how the overwhelming amount of your resources are dedicated to Falcon and Dragon and to this program. How important was it then to have the administrator in to see that firsthand, not just charts and data, but to see the hardware, walk the floor, be in the simulator? And for Jim, how important was that for you to actually be hands-on that way?
Well, I'll tell you, for me, the biggest concern right now is we are getting close to launching American astronauts on American rockets for the first time since 2011. And of course, a lot of people see what happened back in April, and they have concerns. And of course, there have been a lot of concerns about parachutes as well. And where we are today, I think, is a very positive position. And when we walked not just the floor of this facility, but other facilities here on the campus, I got face-to-face time with the people who are making the necessary adjustments to ensure safety. I got to see them, I got to shake their hand, I got to see the work that they've done, and all that is very positive. There is no doubt that in the last weeks, we have had a number of conversations on the phone about what needs to happen in order to meet the highest priority, which is launching American astronauts. And some of those issues, we talk about the integration of the launch abort system with the propulsion system. Some of those issues are important, but the highest priority has been the parachutes. A lot of people don't focus on that, but that's where it's been. And Elon has told me, and he's showed me now, that that's where their priority is. They're putting as much resources and manpower as they can to getting those parachutes ready, so that ultimately we can have consistent, repeatable performance. We can have those tested. The Mark III parachutes to give confidence to us that our astronauts are going to be safe. And I think seeing all that has been a big difference.
Yes, we think the Mark II parachutes, I mean, we think those are safe, but the Mark III parachutes are possibly 10 times safer. And in fact, I think that the Mark III parachutes, in my opinion, is that they're the best parachutes ever, by a lot. If you were to compare the Mod-Chef safety factor of the Mach 3 parachutes to, say, Apollo, this is twice the safety factor of Apollo. This is really a good design. And so we're really putting all of our energy behind the Mach 3 parachutes, working with Airborne, which is they're really good at parachutes. And I was just there actually on Saturday and Sundays, talking to the chief engineer and the program manager and the people sewing the parachutes, and so we're going just full tilt on the Mach 3 parachutes. And people think parachutes, they look easy, but they are definitely not easy. And for those that know the history of the Apollo program, it was actually one of the toughest things in the Apollo program was with parachutes. It was actually one of the toughest morale problems because they had so many engineers quit the parachutes. It's funny to read that, and then have the same experience basically. I mean, I don't think we've actually had, many people quit over it, but it is this is a pretty arduous engineering job to get the parachutes right.
Hi, my name is Michael Sheets of the CNBC. This question I'd like the astronauts to actually answer first. And when you saw that video of the Demo 1 anomaly, and when you saw what happened to the capsule and the explosion, what did that make you think and feel? And since then, what has given you the confidence to say, yes, we're still getting inside this capsule? Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, it's certainly disappointing. You know, you get questions from your family, you get questions from your friends. You know, what happened? You know, do you know what happened? That kind of thing. So, but you know, the other part of it you have to keep in mind is this is test, evaluation, development, and it's part of the process. You know, I think this became public because there was a video that got out, right? And this happens a lot. I guarantee you, it happens a lot. It'll happen next week, maybe to somebody doing an airplane test or maybe a space vehicle test. These things happen. And while it's disappointing, it also can be a real gift to the final design because it can inform the final design. You find the problems that Elon talked about and you go, okay, we need to fix this, we need to redesign it. And the team mobilized incredibly, both on the NASA side and the SpaceX side, to come up with the why did this happen, what can we do to fix it, how can we rebuild the capsule and make it safer for crews in the future. And that's exactly what they've done. And now we're kind of at the end stages, as Jim put it, of verifying and understanding that we do have the margins and that the redesign of the burst test works and it works the way we intended to.
So Doug and I had just been down at Kennedy a couple days prior to the actual event, and so my first thought was to that team because we feel so integrated with that team that their failure is not their failure, it's our failure as a team as we kind of go forward. So my thoughts went out to Kiko and the rest of the guys down there in Florida who had been showing us the hardware that they were proud of and telling us how excited they were to pull off the next phase of the campaign of tests that eventually lead to Doug and I flying the first mission for SpaceX on the Demo 2 vehicle. And so I thought of that team. I sent them a text, and then we got down there as soon as we could. Once we were out of the way from a cleanup perspective, it wasn't the best area to send folks in. They weren't in the right, protective equipment, and that's not our skill set. We don't. When there's an issue like that, we keep our distance from it and let the professionals handle it. And so that's where I was that day when it happened. We got an immediate message from the team here. I think Lee Rosen shared that there had been an incident and kept us informed. And that was another key aspect of any of these failures as they go forward. Giving us insight and sharing that understanding as we go forward has been a part of what makes me so comfortable with this team kind of going forward. And I just really appreciate how much insight we've been able to have, how quickly we've been able to have it in each of these cases.
I think it's important to emphasize, because I think a lot of the public just isn't aware of just like what happens with testing. Honestly, if there's a test program and nothing happens to that test program, I would say that test program is insufficiently rigorous. That's the reality. And it's important to remember that that same spacecraft went to the space station, docked, and returned. And if people had been on board that craft, they would have returned safely. So when you test, you're testing extreme conditions, you're testing off-normal conditions, and you're trying to find extreme corner cases of where things go wrong. And to be totally frank, if there hasn't been some hardware that blew up on the test end, I don't think you tested it hard enough. That's the reality. So, you've got to push the envelope, find out where the outer issues are, and then address all the corner cases.
I will tell you, one of the things that SpaceX is really good at doing, in fact, you could say maybe the best, is fly, test, fix, fly, test, fix, fly, test, fix. It's a very different approach than a lot of our other contractors. And it is a way to iteratively make development changes very fast, and in fact to fail fast. Fail fast and then fix. And some people see concerns in that. I will tell you that I think it's different than a lot of our other contractors, but I don't think it's worse. I don't think it's better. It's different, and it's unlike, quite frankly, what our other contractors do. And I like it. I like it being a part of the mix of our contract capability. That there is this iterative fly, test, fix mindset that SpaceX has, which is very different than trying to qualify every subcomponent and every component And every craft before it ever, hits a test stand, SpaceX is very good at moving quickly, and that's good for NASA. It pushes us. It's good.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a fundamental principle of make sure you fail on the test stand so you do not fail in flight.
My name is Tim Hurley. I'm the Board of Reports. Question for you, Administrator Bridenstine. With most of the commercial crew team here, but we still have an open seat for an Associate Administrator of Human Operations. I'm curious if you can update us on that search who you're talking to, and when you think you'll have someone for that role. Will we need to wait for someone to be in that role for a little while before we can go ahead and say a demo 2 mission?
So to start off, Ken Bowersox, who's an astronaut who, of course, has flown with our gentleman here. He's an amazing individual. He is in the acting position, and he's doing great work. As of right now, I'm very confident that we can continue moving forward and not have any delays because of the opening in that position, because of the quality person and the quality engineer that Ken Bowersox is. I would also say that we are looking for all of the best talent that we could find to fill that role. And we will come to a point where we settle on a name, and we're not there yet. We opened the aperture very wide initially. We have started narrowing it down, but we are not ready to announce who that person is. But I will tell you that announcement is not months away, it's weeks away. And that's a day that we're all looking forward to.
Hi, Rod Powell with Space.com. Just wondering if you could give us a little bit more of an update on specific milestones with parachute tests.
Yeah, so I mean, here's the thing that we have to have with parachutes, because it's not easy to model. What we have to have is we have to have consistent, repeatable performance. We need a lot of drop tests. And of course, because of the conversations that we've had over the last weeks, we now know that we are committed as a team, SpaceX and NASA, committed as a team to the Mark III parachute, which is superior to the Mark II, although the Mark II, we could argue, is safe. The Mark III is even safer. And we need to get, with the Mark III now, consistent, repeatable performance. I will also say that given where we are and the resources that are being deployed on that particular effort, we talked, even today, that we could see as many as 10 drop tests between now and the end of the year. And how those drop tests go, and how they match the Mark II deployment of chutes, we can look at how similar they are or how different they are, and we can make assessments based on similarity that we can actually use a lot of the drop tests that we have on Mark II. And we have a lot of data on Mark II, a lot of testing on Mark II. We could use the data from Mark II to help qualify the Mark III, as long as we see consistent, repeatable performance that matches that of Mark II. So the question is, as we go through this process, what we will find is how consistent it is with the Mark II, and if it is consistent, it'll give us confidence that we don't have to do as many drop tests. If it is not consistent, then we will have to do more. And so we're going to learn that in the coming weeks and months, and that's one of the reasons why when we go forward, it is true, we believe hardware can be delivered by the end of the year, but we also have to make sure that before we put any people on any spacecraft, that we have the consistent, repeatable performance, and we have all of the data where we can make sure that we are meeting the margins that we agreed to ahead of time. So I would say, depending on how the next 10 drop tests go, we will know how many more drop tests we want. Did you want to add to that? You want?
Yeah, absolutely. So we expect to start the we've done a number of Mach 3 drop tests, but we're hopeful to have the most successful Mach 3 drop test within a week or two, and then there will be a steady cadence of tests thereafter. We simply want to get I think at least something on the order of 10 successful tests in a row before launching astronauts. So that seems like where the behavior of the parachutes is consistent across 10 successful tests. That's, I think, a good sort of figure of merit. Our best guess, and it's important to emphasize this as a guess, is that these tests we should get to something like 10 tests, before the end of the year. But we may not. This is just giving you what we believe. Sure. The biggest difference between the Mach 2 and Mach 3 is going to much stronger lines in the parachute. So going from essentially nylon to Xylon. There's actually a thing called Xylon, which is very impressive. The strength of the lines is about 3 times that of nylon, perhaps arguably more. And then there are some changes to the stitching pattern, so that because there are certain places where the load concentrates, basically it's fairly obvious where the lines connect to the canopy, you've got a stress concentration, and so you want to have just exactly the right joint to spread the load at the stress concentration where the lines meet the canopy.
It is also true when we talk about parachutes, and this is important. We have learned a lot because of the work of SpaceX and because of the work of Orion and Starliner. We have learned a lot recently about asymmetry issues on the risers of a parachute. That being said, we can apply that as an agency. NASA can take that data and that information that we get from our great partners, and we can apply it across the agency as a whole to make sure that our astronauts will be safe. And so this is an area where it's not either or, it's all of the above. And when one partner is successful, that success is applicable to all the partners, because human safety is the #1 priority for NASA and for SpaceX.
Yeah, and I've been very, very clear with Jim that any SpaceX data should not be considered proprietary, and it can be used by any of our competitors. No charge, for free, obviously.
And that will be very helpful.
Does anybody have another question for the astronauts who have to leave? No questions. Thank you. Question for the astronauts?
Hi, CBS News. Thank you, gentlemen. What will you be doing between now and when you launch?
We'll be here. Short answer, but we spend almost all of every week here now. And obviously with the in-flight abort, there'll be some crew-related timeline exercises we want to do along the line of the in-flight abort timeline. So when we do the in-flight abort, we'll be down in Florida for that. We may get down for the static fire, but the majority of our time will be here, training, running the sims with the teams, not only here in Hawthorne, but the team back in Houston. So a lot of time in California. And thank you guys.
They have to catch a plane, so we'll say so long. Thank you, guys.
Hi, Samantha Mosnaga, LA Times. Okay. I'm
There
ready.
you are.
I know you said that the program is close to human launches, but obviously it's also getting close to the end of U.S. availability of seats on Soyuz. Can you talk a little bit about that, Administrator? Is that a concern for yours as well?
It is. So clearly there's a number of things at play here. Number one is making sure that we get the hardware delivered. And I think we've got a good plan for how we're going to make that happen. And I want to also be clear, because I know a lot of the SpaceX workforce is going to see and hear this media. We are very grateful for their hard work, and we want them to keep pressing to make sure that we get that hardware delivered. While that is underway, we also have a number of tests. We have a static fire for the launch abort system, and then we have a high altitude abort test that we have to get done between now and the end of the year. And we will take all of the data from those tests and make sure that we are adequately meeting the margin and we are controlling those margins consistently and repeatably. And when that is complete, then we will be ready to launch. So there is what we have to do as an agency is we have to make sure that we're taking the data and making data-informed decisions to be ready to launch. Hardware delivery is not the end state, it is the beginning. And we have to take the data from the testing that we do between now and hardware delivery and qualify these articles for human spaceflight. And so I don't want to say what the date is, but I will say the partnership that we have with Russia is important and it's good. When we have these terrestrial challenges that everybody is aware of, somehow we have been able to keep space exploration separate from the geopolitics of the times. And that's good. And so we like this partnership. But we also want it to be a partnership. We don't want to have to pay $85 million every time we launch an American astronaut on a Soyuz rocket. We don't want to do that. We would rather have it be a true partnership where we launch on their rockets and they launch on our rockets. That would be a great partnership for the future. And so we need to make sure that we do not have a day where we don't have American astronauts on the International Space Station. So we will be continuing to work with Roscosmos, which is the space agency of Russia, to ensure that we do have American astronauts on the International Space Station. As an insurance policy for sure, because there's still some learning left to do between now and launching crew. To be clear, if everything goes according to plan, we may not need additional Soyuz seats. But here's what else we know. Here's something else we know. Usually things don't go according to plan when it comes to these new development capabilities. I will say that we're getting very close, and we're very confident that in the first part of next year, we will be ready to launch American astronauts on American rockets.
Yeah, it's like we just give you some insight into some of the best guess timing ahead. This is just best guess. So what tends to happen with these things? You give the best guess, and then you get some article like, oh, they didn't meet the deadline. We're like, no, it's just a best guess. Like if it was, so like if this was a fully completed development, that you could say with precision or with more precision what the timing of things would be. But anything with that is in development, albeit even the late stages of development, you never know when there might be some thing that crops up that requires more investigation. We're going to look into it more closely. The tests I mentioned with respect to Mach 3 parachute may take longer than expected. We may encounter things that we don't yet know, and that may require more testing. There's also the retest of the propulsion system and propulsion lines to confirm that the design changes that we made will be successful in preventing what caused the test stand failure earlier this year. So those tests will happen probably in the next few weeks, and that will obviously be, if those tests go well, will be a significant risk reduction. I think it's like my philosophy is like to generally say what we think our best guess is, and then kind of bring